It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left
Thank
side.
you, Solo D, and welcome to our season-ending episode of On the Fin Side. Not the happiest of times right now after the Dolphins lose in the playoffs 30-12 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brian Catanzaro with Paul Picken. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. We're going to be here for you throughout the entire offseason. Paul and I are not going on break until well after the NFL draft. So, Paul, it's been a kind of a bad ending to a magical season, huh?
You know, the immediate taste in my mouth after the game was, well, this sucks. I mean, obviously, they make it to the postseason. You want to see them go all the way. We always want to see them go all the way. But you and I both laid out some guidelines before the season for what we would really determine would be a successful season. Better than 8-8. They passed that. Showing signs of long-term quality improvement. They passed that. Showing signs that Gase is finally that head coach we've been looking for. They passed that. I mean, I know you and I threw predictions out there for where they would finish, and I think they met mine and actually surpassed it a little because they qualified for the postseason. I think I had said 10-6, but just missing the playoffs. And I can't remember what you had said offhand. So in reality, this was a successful season. They surpassed a lot of goals, even though they had a lot of holes in the team. They were missing so many critical players at critical moments, and they still managed to do a lot. So you know what? This was a successful season. Don't let this bitter taste sit in your mouth for long.
Yeah, I said 6-10 or 7-9, so it was definitely a successful season for me. And yesterday it was even a little difficult for me to get mad at the players. I mean, it's one thing when it's an effort problem, if it's a lack of preparation. I didn't see that. I saw just very simply a lack of talent on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the back seven. And when you talk about all the injuries that heading into this game, you've got 3 of your 4 defensive backs out. You got both outside linebackers. Actually, Jelani Jenkins was back in this game, but he might as well not have been. You're without Ryan Tannehill. You missed Jordan Cameron early in the year. Not sure if that was a good or a bad thing, but that's what's good about the Dolphins is in the offseason, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the future, they're going to have, after the rollover, after the salary cap increase, they're going to have about $55 to $60 million and not too many players to re-sign either. So without question, a successful season. One player who is not being a success right now is Dion Jordan. Armando Salguero reported with certainty, I don't know if this is speculation or something he knows for sure, that Dion Jordan is not going to be with the Miami Dolphins next year. Paul?
Yeah, Armando doesn't report with certainty unless it's usually well after the fact and he's grabbing his pitchfork to run with the Villagers. So I have to think here he's got some type of inside scoop. And I'm a little sad to see it. I mean, Dion Jordan had his issues, but he showed some flashes of really special talent. And if Miami had Dion Jordan for next year, really they only need 1 starting caliber linebacker. But now they need 2 because he's probably not going to be here.
Yeah, Dion Jordan to me was always viewed for next year as a bonus. I was never even penciling him into a spot simply because you can't depend on the guy. And I always said, too, that I'll defer to team judgment as to whether or not Dion Jordan should even return to the team in 2017. I mean, if they put him on injured reserve because they really wanted to sincerely preserve him for 2017 after the suspensions, after the surgery, then I would have said that's fine. I'd love to have him back, see if we get anything out of him. But if there are, quote, issues still, then that really is a problem. And also, too, Paul, I was a little bit surprised, too, to see Jason Jones get the axe beforehand, before the Dolphins game.
Yeah, I was surprised on 2 fronts. One was, by all reports, he got told he was going to be inactive for Sunday's game. And on the second front, that they went ahead and released him. I didn't see that coming at all. He was a player that, before he got suspended, I did have some issues with him, even though he was starting to come on right before the suspension happened. But really, since the suspension, he's actually been a critical cog, and far better than guys like Terrence Fede and a handful of others when they get on the field. So I viewed him as a guy that was going to be one of the critical members of the rotation for next season. And now it doesn't look like that's a possibility at all.
Me too. I was very surprised. I said a couple weeks ago that there were 3 backups that I would have liked back for sure, and that was Sam Young, Marquise Gray, and Jason Jones. And surely enough, they re-signed Sam Young and Marquise Gray for insurance next year. I thought Jones was going to be the same guy. I don't see. To me, it had to be a weekly effort thing with Jason Jones. Nothing else would make sense. Doesn't make sense for me why you would have Fide and Nick Williams active over Jason Jones when Jones has clearly played better this year. But something happened inside those walls that we probably don't know about. My guess as to what happened, Jason Jones didn't practice hard for a week or maybe 2 weeks. He was told he was going to be inactive because of his lack of effort. And this is total speculation. Jason Jones flew off the handle, and Adam Gase said, well, the hell with it. We're not going to have you back anyway, so we might as well just cut you now. That's my speculation on it. But, Paul, let's get to the grades for the Steelers-Dolphins contest. Let's start at the quarterback spot, and you actually messaged me on Twitter saying that you were going to give Matt Moore a big fat F in this game. I think that was about in the third quarter. So are you sticking with that F, or are you going to go with a little bit of a higher grade?
It's hard for me to differentiate between the D or the F here. I mean, yeah, he was, 29 of 36 for 289 yards with a touchdown. But at the same time, he killed at least 10 points when he did not call out the blitz he recognized. You saw him look at the blitzer as he was coming through, and as he starts to take off, he doesn't protect the football. And his interception was critically just brutal with a wide open Deion Sims down the field. So he really cost the Dolphins a lot in this game. I mean, a game that they lost by 18 points sure gets one hell of a lot closer if he doesn't have those 3 turnovers, and all in critical moments, and some in which he recognized the situation. So I'll give him a D to be nice here, but it's time to move on from the Matt Moore as a backup experiment. He came in, provided a brief flash, and then was mediocre at best. And I'd rather see somebody come in and develop behind him. It's a D here, but bravo forever.
Well, I would like to see Matt Moore back next year as the backup, and I think he will be. I'm all for as well drafting a quarterback in the middle rounds to groom too. I mean, I'll give him a D+ in this because, yeah, even though he was 29 for 36, a lot of those completions, I think at one point he had 13 of them in a row. A lot of them were dump-off passes in a game where the Dolphins were already down by 3 scores. And I thought the Dolphins were moving the ball well on offense, but you look at the 3 drives in a row where the Dolphins turned over the football. I mean, it was 20-6, and the Dolphins had the ball in the Steelers' territory. If you score on that possession, it's 20-13, and you're getting the ball back after half. I mean, this thing could go down to the wire. But then there was the fumble. And, yeah, you're right, Paul. Even though the pass protection, even though Juwan James and Brandon Albert didn't pick up those blitzers on the fumble, he saw them coming. And that has to be put on Matt Moore. And that interception as well was terrible. I mean, after those 3 turnovers in a row, Steelers have the ball in Dolphins territory, up 17, and the rest is history. I'll give him a D+ strictly because of those 3 drives that could have been prevented. Running back position, I'll take this one. Jay Ajayi, not a good performance here, even with the lack of run blocking. I believe with 17 carries for 33 yards, somewhere in that neighborhood. Kenyon Drake, continues to amaze me. One of the few problems I had with the coaching staff is not getting Kenyon Drake out on the field at running back a little bit more. And Jay Ajayi, another thing too, is when you looked at that hit of Bud Dupree on Matt Moore, Jay Ajayi also draws a 15-yard penalty that puts the Dolphins at the 32 instead of inside the red zone. People say, hey, he's stuck up for his quarterback. That is not sticking up for your quarterback. That's being stupid after the play. If you want to stick up for your quarterback, really hit the guy. Don't go and grab him like a girl by the collar where you get a 15-yard penalty. So for me, the running back spot gets a D.
Yeah, for me, it's a D+ here. The line didn't really do any favors in run blocking in this one, but the Steelers were also absolutely keying the hell out of the run. They were not going to get beaten by a 200-plus yard runner again here. They made that loud and clear right from the outset of this one. Like you said, though, too, Kenyon Drake, I mean, he had that big touchdown run a few weeks ago. And then the coaching staff almost seemed to go, you know what? he did a little too well here. Let's not put him back out there. Damian Williams, he continues to impress me as somebody that I can't recall if he's a free agent offhand or not, but if not, he needs to be back here next year, which if you asked me before the season, I would have said absolutely not. But he finds ways to get into the end zone, which is beautiful to see. So I like the 3 running backs we have going into next year, but for this game, it was a rough one. Hopefully they learn a little bit from it. I know Ajayi ends up a little banged up in this one, and it's a D+ for me.
Yeah, Damian Williams, I believe, is going to be a restricted free agent this upcoming season, at which point, hey, if the Dolphins want to bring him back for $1 million a year, I think he is a good backup. He showed some versatility. A couple stupid mistakes down the wire, but, overall, he definitely impressed me more than I thought he would. Let's move on to the receivers and tight ends, Paul.
This is one unit on offense that I'll give a pretty good grade to here. I mean, these guys put out one hell of a lot of effort in this game. It's really not their fault to me that the team lost. I mean, yeah, Kenny Stills had one miss that he probably should have had, but also made up for it with some beautiful adjustments on some pretty poorly thrown balls in this one. I'll actually give the receivers in this one a B+. You saw a lot of heart from Landry. You saw a lot of heart from Stills, and Devontae Parker continued to show that he's got a season to build off of now going into next year. So really, Miami re-signed Stills. It's great. It's nice seeing Deion Sims get involved again.
Yeah, I'll give him a B for the reasons you said. Deion Sims and Kenny Stills, to me, are really 2 of the 3 free agents really the Dolphins need to bring back. I mean, other than that, you got Andre Branch, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, Kenny Stills, to me, is an incredible deep threat. And really, that might be all he's good at right now. But he's also 24 years old. He does look the part of a wide receiver. Reminds me a lot of former Dolphin Tony Martin as a deep threat. And Jarvis Landry catches 11 passes for 102 yards. Obviously, he had a fantastic game. Devontae Parker, 5 for 45. And I have no problem with what the receivers or the tight ends did in this game. Did they flash greatness? Maybe not, but I think they definitely did their job. They're not the reason we lost. And we'll see what happens with Landry and Stills in the offseason. Landry has 1 year left on his contract. Stills is a free agent. There's talk today that Kenny Stills really wants to stay in Miami. I think it'll cost somewhere between $5 and $7 million a year. We'll see how that goes. Overall, a B on the grade. Let's move on to the offensive line, Paul. Couple of problems there. Brandon Albert, really not the best game for him. Let up a sack, had a few miscommunications. When you look at the James Harrison sack, that was Albert's responsibility. On the other side, Juwan James faltered on a blitz pickup, and the middle of the offensive line did not create a whole heck of a lot of running lanes for Jay Ajayi. I think Jermon Bushrod needs to be upgraded in the offseason, and I think they will at right guard. Urbich's done fine, and Tunzel, I thought, had an okay game, but overall not good enough for the offensive line. I'm going to give him a D+.
I'm actually going to go with a C+ for these guys here. Their run blocking was not great, but Miami really wasn't in a situation early on yet again in this game where the running game was set up to be a factor. They got put into pass protection. And yeah, Matt Moore got killed on a rollout play there, but that was well outside the pocket. There were a few times he got flushed from the pocket. There was a secondary coming through twice and forcing the fumble. But I put that more on Matt Moore because of the scenario where the outside, the corners, the safeties, when they're coming on a blitz, if it's off the edge, that's where Matt Moore has to be the one to recognize it and call out. That's not something that's easy for the offensive line to see, and that's on him to make that call. Then he just didn't. So I'm not going to fault them for those two. There was a sack that Damian Williams let up. So all in all, I think the pass protection was actually pretty decent in this one. It was the run blocking that really faltered. And for that, I'll give these guys a C+.
Yeah, on a down-to-down basis, the pass protection was pretty good, even though there were some lapses. But, yeah, it'll be interesting, too, with Brandon Albert after the year, if he's worth bringing back at his price tag or not. Defensive side of the ball, let's go with the defensive line, Paul.
Defensive line is so odd in this one. Cam Wake was mostly a non-factor. I thought Ndamukong Suh and Jordan Phillips actually flashed some very brilliant moments in this one. And then Andre Branch, I thought, was just okay. I don't know if our defensive ends were down the stretch or if the fact that there were so many holes in the back seven down the stretch. Took away from their ability to rush the passer in this one. But really, I've got to go with a B- here, mainly because I did think Sue and Phillips had that good of a game that got completely masked by some other issues on the defense.
Yeah, I'm going to go much lower. I'm going to go with a D+ for the defensive line. Cameron Wake had a few pressures. And Ndamukong Suh, I thought, did have a good game against David DeCastro. And not to mention he was being double-teamed, even with a Pro Bowl guard on him. That other defensive tackle spot is, to me, a position that may even need to be upgraded in the offseason. I know Jordan Phillips has potential, but you look at the last 3 games, there are 3 or 4 drives. Jordan Phillips absolutely destroyed the person in front of him and then disappears for the rest of the game. So I think next year the Dolphins, they need to re-sign Andre Branch, and they need to get 2 defensive ends and maybe another defensive tackle as well. Because this 7-8 man rotation, when you're bringing players in like a hurt Mario Williams, Nick Williams, Terrence Fede, they've been embarrassing as backups. I mean, when is the last time Terrence Fede has made a play in the last year and a half? When's the last time he's been relevant in the last year and a half?
I know. I know when he roughed the punter early this season. And
when he roughed the punter.
Game.
Should have been cut after that game. He's just not very good. And defensive tackle, I see Earl Mitchell and Jordan Phillips. When you see those running plays, you see them getting wiped out of the play. And then you see that going down to the linebackers. They get wiped out too. And now you understand why you get all these 10 to 15-yard runs all the time throughout the game. So, no, I think Andre Branch, to me, has disappointed the last 3 or 4 games, which actually could work out in the Dolphins' favor because if he ended the season with 9 or 10 sacks, then we could be talking about an $8, $9, $10 million a year type player to re-sign. But he finishes with 5.5. Not too good in the last few games, but I think he's somebody who needs to be re-signed. But overall, not enough pass rush in this game, and it's what the Dolphins' defense is predicated on. I'm going to give him a D+. The linebacker position continues to get worse. And, to me, the biggest need of the offseason is this. Kiko Alonso, you can run right at him at middle linebacker, but he does flash some really good plays. You look at him stuffing Le'Veon Bell twice at the goal line. But at outside linebacker, Neville Hewitt, Jelani Jenkins, Spencer Paysinger, guys are just not good enough. I think Neville Hewitt and Mike Hull will be back after the season on cheap contracts, but the rest, as far as I'm concerned, I could take him or leave him. Jelani Jenkins can't play this year. Maybe it's the injury, maybe it's not, but the Dolphins very badly need a big-time linebacker, preferably one in the middle to kick Kiko Alonso to the outside. Overall, Paul, I'm going to give them a D.
Yeah, I'm going to change the pluralization of 2 of the things you said there. I'm going to grade the linebacker in this one because the other 2 might as well not even been on the field, no matter which ones it was. So I thought Kiko had an okay game, but like you, I'd love to see him get kicked outside next year. Would have looked beautiful this season if they had Reggie Ragland next to him in the middle of the field, but that's here nor there. I wouldn't change the 2 guys that Miami ended up getting either. But yeah, it's like you said, the outside linebacker position is the biggest hole in this team right now, and sliding Kiko out, getting somebody in the middle, getting somebody to go next to him would be great. I have no problem with Hull or Hewitt being back next year, but they are not starter material right now and need to be behind those starters. I also wouldn't mind Paysinger as a backup and special teamer, but I could take or leave it, like you said. And yeah, for me, it's probably a C- here.
Defensive back too. I look at this position. Tony Lippett, who I've really become a fan of throughout the season, had just a nightmare of a first half against Antonio Brown. I never understand why Tony Lippett plays off the football because he can't tackle to save his life. His body isn't big enough to take those massive hits. He easily gets wiped out. You saw in the first touchdown to Antonio Brown, you've got him getting wiped out of the play. Then on the second touchdown, I thought he actually had pretty good coverage given that it was Roethlisberger throwing the ball to Antonio Brown, but he catches it, outruns Bakari Rambo, which tends to be a weekly thing, takes it to the house. But the thing that pisses me off the most about what Lippett does too often is he plays way beyond the sticks on 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6. There were 2 big third downs that the Steelers got because of that. And I don't think that's Vance Joseph's fault. I don't think Vance Joseph is telling him to play 10 yards back and not let the guy get the first down. Maybe Kevin Coyle did that. I don't think Vance Joseph's doing that. Xavier Howard, congratulations to him on his first career interception. It was meaningless, but congratulations to him. I actually think Howard, even though he's a step slow right now, is going to be a pretty good player. But overall, just a terrible performance regardless of the injuries. I mean, at one point, Ben Roethlisberger was 11 for 11 throwing the football. Actually, 10 for 11, but his incompletion was a pass interference by Xavier Howard. So overall, I've got to give him a D-.
For me, I really didn't have a huge problem with how the corners played, which seems insane considering the fact that Antonio Brown just torched Lippett early on in the first quarter and for the majority of it. But he got no help. I mean, there were about 5 missed tackles after the fact when he went streaking down the sideline. I do agree Lippett needs to play a little closer to the ball. I don't fully agree that Vance Joseph has no role in that, mainly because we've seen so many times this season where Byron Maxwell ends up being off the ball as well. And Maxwell's a press man corner. He knows where he makes his money. When he's up on the guys, he shuts down the number 1 receivers. And the corners in this game, man, they were on such an island because normally you can count on having safety help, and Miami was forced to start mediocre and piss poor back there at safety in Michael Thomas, who I thought was just mediocre in this one, even though he had an interception. And Bakari Rambo, who essentially his highlight film from this year is going to be opponents getting touchdowns running over, through, and around him, or him just running out and being out of position, being yelled at by a rookie who seems to understand defensive schemes better than he does. It's I don't fault him because it just seems to be a pure lack of ability and football IQ. But Bakari Rambo has no business being on an NFL field anymore unless it's helping out on the sidelines. It's for me. It's a D+, but I didn't have a huge problem with the corners in this one. It was the safety play that 100% hurt it for me.
I had a problem with all of it, and even though there have been times where Maxwell and other cornerbacks have played far off on the ball a little bit too much this year, I do think they tighten up on 3rd down, and Tony Lippett wasn't doing that. And I just have a hard time believing that when it's 3rd and 5 that he's being told to play 10 yards beyond the sticks. I think that's a Tony Lippett problem on that play, but who knows? Special teams, Paul. I don't know. Not a whole heck of a lot to report on.
Yeah, Jakeem Grant needs to work on his ball security in the offseason. Andrew Franks, meh. I did think Kenyon Drake had a really beautiful kickoff return and looked good on kickoff returns yet again. Matt Darr had his typical up and down day that we've seen from him this year, and I hate to say it because I love the kid, but unless he's nursing an injury that the coaching staff knows about, they need to bring in some competition this offseason, mainly based on the strength of Kenyon Drake and some of the coverage units. I'll give this team, the special teams, a C, but there needs to be some upgrades this offseason in a few key areas.
Yeah, I'll give them a C+. I love their ability to prevent the returner from getting to the 25-yard line. That's really good. And Spencer Paysinger is a really big part of that too. That's like you. That's why I would like to see him back next year. I actually wish Paysinger would have played a little bit more than Donald Butler and Jelani Jenkins here over the last couple of games. But yeah, Jakeem Grant, to me, it's absolutely silly at this point why you would have him returning kicks. I mean, and not necessarily because it's unforgivable that he's muffed this many, but because you've got Jarvis Landry, you've got Kenyon Drake on your team. Jakeem Grant is the 3rd best returner you have, and he has put the ball on the ground 5 times in the last 6 games. Even twice in 6 games for me would be unacceptable. So I do think there's a way to go with Jakeem Grant. I think he has special speed. I think he's worth keeping around, but if you get to next year and this guy is returning kicks and returning punts and putting the ball on the ground again, I don't want him even on the roster anymore. Kenyon Drake, fantastic kick return ability, brought one back past the 40-yard line. Darr, up and down again. I do hope there's competition with Franks and Darr for those jobs. I'll give the special teams a C+.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention here too, and I was hoping you'd touch on it, but I think we both left it out, it was nice seeing Miami go for that fake punt and seeing Michael Thomas manage to scrunch his way through and get that first down. I mean, that could have proved to be a very critical moment in this game if we hadn't turned the ball over so damn much on stupid plays. So, yeah, that was definitely a positive with the special teams here.
Yeah, I'm always surprised that you don't see that more often on 4th and inches where they just hike it to the guy closest to the line and he charges ahead. I mean, I think they should be doing that more. Very good play call. So, Paul, that'll do it for us here at the end of the 2016 season. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we call it a show?
No, I can't wait to sit down and talk about all the off-season stuff. I know you and I kind of geek out for it. I know we've got a ton to cover here in the coming months, so I'm just looking forward to it, man. I think we're going to have a good time with it.
Yeah, my brothers used to joke with me that they'd say, you don't even like football. You just like the transactions and the draft. I'm like, I don't know. They might be right on that. I mean, obviously not liking football part, but I tend to like parts of the offseason more than I actually do the regular season. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I look forward to it. And we will call it a 2016 season. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it's on the fin side. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side.
Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what Brian, Cat, and Paul about to do again. We rep our team, you can't change, stop, or ruin it. All we need is to figure what to do to win. Fins Radio, live and direct. Win or lose, we're showing up for every contest. No puppet talk, it's all raw and unfiltered. Voice of the fans when the season looks peculiar. Rockin' aqua orange over here, then you familiar. Every week they coming through our speakers to fulfill the crap we have to hear about our team and all the latest news. Vets the rookies trying to make the team paying dues. Current players and alumni interviews. City to city, state to state, follow the moves. Call the hotline, Dolphins talk set to go. Best sports team and show all across the globe.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side.
Who that?
So low, so low, so low, deep. So low, so low, so low.